Did you know that beneath the glitz and drama of Natalie Wood's storied Hollywood life, there's a hidden chapter often overlooked, an impressive real estate portfolio in Palm Springs that remained secret for decades? It's an unexpected twist in the life of an actress remembered for her iconic roles in West Side Story, Rebel Without a Cause, and Splendor in the Grass, and for the lingering questions surrounding her tragic passing. Yet behind the scenes of all her film triumphs and personal turmoil, Natalie Wood quietly cultivated a small empire of desert properties that reflected not only her shrewd business sense, but also the emotional sanctuaries she cherished away from the spotlight. In the late 1950s, Natalie purchased her first Palm Springs property under an assumed name. According to a family friend who spoke many years later, she was determined to maintain privacy. At the time, Hollywood was abuzz with real estate gossip, but Natalie wanted a hideaway that was truly her own. The property wasn't anything grand at first, a modest house in the less touristy area of Palm Springs, but she poured her heart and soul into renovating it. Former neighbors recall seeing a young, paint-splattered Natalie Wood personally overseeing small-scale restorations. She wanted the space to feel like a second home, far from prying eyes. By the early 1960s, Natalie had acquired an adjacent plot of land, expanding her real estate footprint quietly. Rumor has it she even used friends as intermediaries to ensure that her name wasn't directly tied to the purchases, avoiding speculation in tabloids. In a recently unearthed interview, her longtime friend and interior decorator, Mark Crowley, mentioned that Natalie loved the desert's mystical serenity. She didn't want the paparazzi following her every move, and she certainly didn't want them snooping around her favorite retreat. Despite being secretive, Natalie was extremely proud of these properties. According to her sister Lana Wood, Natalie would often invite close friends out for casual weekends. The group would swim in the pool, watch the breathtaking desert sunsets, and gather around a simple outdoor fire pit. During one evening get-together, a friend recalled hearing Natalie say, "This place keeps me grounded. Out here, I'm just Natasha," referencing her birth name, Natasha Gerdine. In that moment, it was clear the properties were much more than an investment. They were her emotional refuge. Over time, she acquired a total of 4 properties in the Palm Springs area. Each one served a different purpose, from a private writing retreat where she could study scripts or contemplate new roles, to a small cottage she lent to friends who needed a temporary escape. There's a poignant story of how, during a turbulent period in her first marriage to Robert Wagner, she allegedly stayed in that secluded cottage for weeks on end, seeking solitude and clarity. The caretaker of the property, at the time, later shared she'd walk barefoot across the desert sand at dawn, just lost in her thoughts. She seemed peaceful, but also like someone carrying an invisible weight. One of the lesser-known controversies swirling around Natalie's Palm Springs acquisitions came from suspicions about how she financed them. Some speculated that she was bankrolled by powerful studio executives, given how young she was when the first deals were made. However, documents later showed that she had been meticulous in saving her earnings since her early teen roles. This was a strategic move on her part. Her mother, Maria Gerdin, had always insisted that the family's financial future depended on wise investments. A business manager who worked with the family admitted years later, Natalie was one of the few young stars who didn't let Hollywood money burn a hole in her pocket. She learned the value of financial independence early on. Another hidden detail lies in the style and architecture of these properties, which differ significantly from the typical mid-century modern homes Palm Springs is famous for. Natalie had a soft spot for southwestern adobe-style buildings, incorporating Spanish-influenced tile roofs, rustic wooden beams, and intimate courtyards. It's said that her design choices clashed with the prevailing Palm Springs aesthetic of clean lines and stark geometry. Architects who studied her homes have marveled at how seamlessly these properties blend into the desert landscape, prioritizing shade, natural ventilation, and modest footprints, far from the grand scale of other celebrity mansions in the area. A fascinating rumor suggests that Natalie and Elvis Presley once had a late-night conversation under the starlit sky in the courtyard of her first home. Elvis, who also frequented Palm Springs, admired the actress's sense of style. Supposedly, they traded tips on desert living. Elvis advised her on palm tree landscaping, while she encouraged him to invest in desert properties of his own. Although no photograph or official interview confirms this meeting, it became a local legend passed down by a neighbor who claimed to see the king's car parked outside Natalie's gate one summer night. In a rarely cited snippet from her interviews, Natalie revealed that she often retreated to Palm Springs whenever a role overwhelmed her or when she felt the weight of industry expectations. "I feel like I can breathe here," she said, standing on the patio of her home, the desert breeze rustling through the palm trees. It was during these desert respites that she considered some of her most iconic roles. Close associates recall that she made her final decision to accept the part of Maria in West Side Story while staying at one of her Palm Springs properties, pacing around the living room late at night, humming the music, and imagining the whirlwind success that role would bring. For many years, her real estate remained under the radar, but it increasingly drew the attention of those who suspected Natalie was more business savvy than she let on. One incident that fueled speculation involved her short-lived partnership with a well-known Hollywood producer who pitched the idea of transforming one of her properties into a retreat for A-list stars. Natalie politely declined. Insiders suggest that she was protective of her desert paradise, fearing that turning it into a high-end getaway would destroy the peaceful atmosphere she so valued. It's likely she used her polite refusal as a shield against letting her properties become just another side of the celebrity industry machine. The mystique around Natalie Wood's Palm Springs sanctuary became even more pronounced after her untimely death in 1981. The circumstances of her passing on a boat trip near Catalina Island sparked innumerable theories, rumors, and controversies, overshadowing many aspects of her life. Although the majority of public focus remained on the tragic and mysterious end to her story, those closest to her quietly dealt with the future of her desert holdings. Her family faced complicated legal questions about the ownership structure. Some properties were in trust, others still in her name, and at least one in that assumed name she'd used in her youth. It took years to sort out. Meanwhile, only a handful of confidants and relatives were even aware how many desert parcels existed. Family members and legal representatives occasionally disagreed on whether to retain the properties as a homage or to liquidate them. According to an eyewitness at one family meeting, there were tears, laughter, and a lot of confusion. One moment, they'd be sharing sweet memories of Natalie hosting backyard cookouts, and the next minute, they'd be questioning how to deal with real estate taxes on land they hardly knew about. Ultimately, a combination of estate-related legal complexities and personal convictions led them to sell some parcels. Still, at least two of them remained in the family's hands for decades, serving as cherished heirlooms that connected future generations to the luminous star who built them. One of the final hidden chapters in this saga is that as Palm Springs experienced a renaissance in the 1990s and early 2000s, several developers attempted to acquire the land that Natalie had so carefully nurtured. At least one developer allegedly proposed leveling the vintage cottages to build a modern resort. The family respectfully declined. A friend close to the negotiation said they felt that if Natalie were alive, she would have fought tooth and nail to preserve the character of those properties. Over time, these homes became something of a quiet historical footnote in Palm Springs, overshadowed by the more famous celebrity estates. But for those who know the full story, the properties stand as a testament to Natalie's desire for anonymity, her deep love for the desert, and her forward-thinking investments. Perhaps the most poignant reminder of all is hearing the recollections of Natalie's younger sister Lana, who once described visiting one of the remaining properties years after Natalie's passing. I could almost feel her presence in the warm desert wind. She was there in every piece of furniture she picked out, every tile she chose, every palm she planted. It was like having a conversation with her all over again. This reflection underscores how, for Natalie, these homes were never purely a financial venture. They were personal spaces of healing, inspiration, and emotional release, safe havens where she could be vulnerable and unguarded. Not surprisingly, controversy and debate follow nearly every facet of Natalie Wood's life story. As the decades passed, various theories about her real estate dealings emerged, some painting her as a reclusive mogul, others insisting she only dabbled in property and lucked into a desert windfall. Did she intentionally keep these homes a secret to avoid public scrutiny, or was she simply a private individual who had learned the value of safeguarding her personal life? Everyone from curious fans to Hollywood historians has offered an opinion. When new documents or stories emerge about her property dealings, they trigger a fresh wave of fascination that underscores how strongly her legacy persists. From a broader cultural perspective, Natalie's Palm Springs properties reflect an era in Hollywood when stars sought desert enclaves to escape the pressures of fame. Her quiet empire stood for something intangible, a longing for normalcy in the midst of an extraordinary life. Today, even though some of the original cottages have been renovated or sold, their essence remains. They've inspired new owners who appreciate the history nestled among their walls. Indeed, visitors who know where to look can still find small tokens of Natalie's presence. An original adobe archway, a decorative tile with her initials, or a discreet plaque quietly acknowledging the actress who once found solace there. All these years later, Natalie Wood remains an enduring icon of the silver screen, beloved for performances that captured the hearts of multiple generations. Yet it's this lesser-known piece of her biography, the secret empire she quietly built in the desert, that adds a new dimension to her story. It shows us an ambitious, grounded, and sometimes guarded woman who understood the power of having a safe haven. As the mystique around her life continues to captivate fans and historians alike, the story of her Palm Springs homes stands as a poignant reminder that sometimes the real treasures a star leaves behind aren't just in their films, but in the places where they found refuge, inspiration, and a bit of the inner peace they so desperately craved.